What if the very hands you are using right now, the hands that have held bills with trembling uncertainty, the hands that have signed documents with reluctant resignation, the hands that have reached out for help only to find emptiness, what if those same hands were designed from before your birth to receive unending, overflowing, divine prosperity? Have you ever paused in the stillness of your own contemplation and asked yourself why wealth seems to flow effortlessly towards certain individuals while others labor endlessly, struggle perpetually, and yet remain bound by invisible chains of lack? Have you considered that the difference between those who prosper and those who perish financially has nothing to do with luck, nothing to do with external circumstances, and everything to do with an inner law that has been operating since the dawn of creation? Tonight, you stand at the threshold of understanding something that could alter the entire trajectory of your financial life. You are about to receive a teaching that does not merely scratch the surface of positive thinking but penetrates into the very depths of consciousness where miracles are born and destinies are formed. This is not theory. This is not wishful speculation. This is the law of your own being, waiting to be recognized and released. There is a power within you that has never been poor, has never known lack, and has never been confused about how to create abundance from what appears to be nothing. This power does not belong to the future. It does not require you to become someone other than who you are. It exists within you at this very moment, and it is stirring now as you hear these words. If this message resonates with something deep within your spirit, I invite you to join this sacred community of awakening souls. Subscribe to this channel and press the notification bell so that you will receive every teaching designed to transform your consciousness. Press the like button now as an act of faith, a declaration that you are ready to receive. And in the comments below, write these words: prosperity flows to me now. Let this be your first affirmation, your first command to the invisible forces that await your instruction. Now, let us begin this journey together, and let us discover how God commands prosperity into your waiting hands. There is a passage in the ancient scriptures that reads, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." These words from the prophet Jeremiah were not written for a select few. They were not reserved for a particular nation or a distant era. They were inscribed into the fabric of eternal truth for every soul who would one day awaken to receive them. And tonight, they speak directly to you. The concept of prosperity being commanded into your hands is not metaphor alone. It is description. It is the accurate portrayal of what occurs when a human mind aligns itself with the infinite source of all supply. The universe operates according to laws as precise and reliable as those governing the movement of planets and the blossoming of flowers. And among these laws, there is one that stands above all others when it comes to the creation of material abundance, the law of subconscious belief. Your subconscious mind does not argue. It does not debate. It does not question the instructions it receives. It simply accepts whatever is impressed upon it with feeling and faith, and it proceeds to manifest that impression into your three-dimensional world with absolute fidelity. If you have been living in lack, it is not because the universe has abandoned you. It is not because you are unworthy. It is because the subconscious mind has been operating on instructions that do not match your conscious desires. Consider this truth carefully. You may consciously desire wealth with every fiber of your being. You may affirm prosperity each morning and visualize abundance each night. But if the subconscious mind holds a contradictory belief, if somewhere in the depths of your psyche there exists a conviction that you are undeserving, that money is evil, that rich people are corrupt, or that your family has always been poor and always will be, then the subconscious will faithfully create your outer world according to those hidden instructions rather than your surface wishes. This is why so many struggle despite their efforts. This is why some pray for prosperity yet continue to experience lack. The conscious mind desires one thing while the subconscious creates another. There is a civil war happening within, and until peace is established, until the conscious and subconscious are brought into alignment, the outer world will reflect the chaos of that inner conflict. But here is the truth that changes everything. You have the power to reprogram your subconscious mind. You have the authority to impress upon it new beliefs, new convictions, new assumptions about who you are and what you deserve. And when you do this successfully, the outer transformation is not slow and gradual. It is often sudden and miraculous. The circumstances of your life will rearrange themselves to match the new inner picture, and you will stand in amazement as prosperity flows toward you from channels you never anticipated. There was a man I shall call Edward, though that was not his true name. Edward worked for 31 years in a manufacturing plant in the eastern part of this country. He was faithful to his duties, rarely missed a day of work, and yet found himself at the age of 54 with nothing but a modest pension and a rented apartment. His wife had passed some years earlier, and his 2 children had moved to distant cities. Edward sat alone in the evenings, reviewing his life and wondering why, despite decades of honest labor, he had never experienced the financial freedom others seemed to enjoy. One evening, Edward encountered a teaching that introduced him to the concept of the subconscious mind as a creative medium. He learned that his thoughts, when impressed upon the subconscious with feeling and repetition, would inevitably externalize in his experience. At first, he was skeptical. He had never considered himself a spiritual man, and the idea that his mind could influence his material circumstances seemed fantastical. But something in Edward was ready to change. Perhaps it was the weight of accumulated disappointment. Perhaps it was a quiet desperation. Whatever the cause, he decided to experiment with the principles he had learned. Each night before sleep, he would relax his body completely and allow his mind to drift into that drowsy state between waking and sleeping. In that state, he would imagine himself holding a bank statement showing a balance far greater than anything he had ever possessed. He would feel the texture of the paper, see the numbers clearly, and allow a sense of gratitude and satisfaction to wash over him as though the wealth were already his. He did this faithfully for several weeks. At first, nothing changed in his outer world. The rent was still due, the pension still modest, the apartment still small. But Edward persisted. He understood that the subconscious mind works in ways the conscious mind cannot perceive, and he refused to judge the effectiveness of his practice by immediate visible results. Then something remarkable occurred. A former colleague contacted Edward about an opportunity. A small business was being sold, a business Edward had never considered before, and his colleague believed Edward would be perfect to operate it. Edward had no capital for such a purchase, and he almost dismissed the suggestion immediately. But something within him urged him to explore further. Through a series of events that Edward later described as nothing short of providential, financing became available on terms he could manage. The seller, for reasons Edward never fully understood, offered to carry a portion of the purchase price at minimal interest. Within 6 months, Edward had transitioned from factory worker to business owner. Within 2 years, his income had increased sixfold. Within 5 years, he had purchased the building in which the business operated and had opened a second location. What happened to Edward? Did the external world randomly conspire to bless him? Did coincidence pile upon coincidence until fortune smiled upon him by chance? No. Edward had impressed a new image upon his subconscious mind. He had replaced the old picture of limitation with a new picture of abundance. And the subconscious, true to its nature, had reorganized his external experience to match the internal change. This is the law. This is not speculation. This is the principle that operates whether you believe in it or not, whether you are aware of it or not. Your subconscious is creating your world at this very moment based on the impressions it holds. The question is not whether this power is real. The question is what you are doing with it. The scriptures declare in Proverbs 23 verse 7, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Notice the precision of this statement. It does not say as a man thinketh in his head. It says in his heart. The heart, in the symbolic language of Scripture, represents the subconscious mind, the feeling nature, the deep center of belief. It is what you accept at the level of feeling, at the level of unquestioned conviction, that determines what you become and what you experience. Many people think positively at the surface level while feeling negatively at the deeper level. They affirm abundance with their lips while feeling lack in their bones. And the subconscious responds not to words but to feelings. It is the feeling of wealth, the sensation of security, the emotional tone of prosperity that impresses the subconscious and initiates the creative process. This is why two people can use the same affirmation and achieve wildly different results. One person says the words while secretly doubting their truth. The other says the words while genuinely feeling the reality they describe. The first person impresses doubt upon the subconscious. The second impresses faith. And each receives according to what was truly impressed, not according to what was merely spoken. You must understand that the subconscious mind is infinitely intelligent. It is connected to a wisdom and a power that transcends your conscious awareness. Some call this the universal mind. Some call it infinite intelligence. Others call it God. The name matters less than the recognition that this power is real, that it is available to you, and that it operates through the medium of your subconscious mind. When you impress an image of prosperity upon your subconscious, you are not merely engaging in psychological self-suggestion. You are activating a connection with the infinite source of all supply. You are opening a channel through which divine abundance can flow into your experience. The prosperity that comes to you may appear to arrive through human channels, through a new job, a business opportunity, an unexpected inheritance, a creative idea, but the true source is always the infinite, and the activating mechanism is always your own consciousness. Consider the woman I shall call Martha. Martha was a single mother of 3 children, abandoned by a husband who had departed without warning and without provision. She worked 2 jobs to keep her family housed and fed, yet despite her exhausting efforts, there was never enough. Each month was a battle against insufficiency. Each week brought new anxieties about how the bills would be paid. Martha had grown up in a religious household, but her faith had weakened under the weight of her circumstances. She found it difficult to believe in a loving God when her life seemed so filled with struggle. Yet in her darkest hour, a friend shared with her the principle of subconscious mind science, the understanding that her deep-seated beliefs were shaping her experience and that she had the power to change those beliefs. At first, Martha resisted. She felt that believing in abundance while her bank account showed scarcity would be a form of delusion. But her friend persisted gently, explaining that the belief must come first, that the inner change must precede the outer transformation. Reluctantly, Martha agreed to try. She began with simple practices. Each morning before rising, she would lie still and affirm to herself, "I am provided for in every way. My children and I lack nothing. Abundance flows to me easily and constantly." At night before sleeping, she would imagine tucking her children into bed in a beautiful home, seeing them healthy and happy, feeling gratitude for a life of plenty. The changes did not come immediately. For weeks, the outer circumstances remained unchanged. Martha was tempted to abandon the practice, to declare it useless and return to the familiar territory of worry and struggle. But something within her urged her to continue. She had caught a glimpse of a different possibility, and she could not see it. Then the tide began to turn. A position opened at her primary workplace, a position she had not known existed, with a salary nearly double her current income. She applied without much hope, feeling she lacked the qualifications. Yet she was selected for an interview, then a second interview, then offered the position. Her supervisor later told her that something in her demeanor during the interviews had communicated a quiet confidence that set her apart from other candidates. This was only the beginning. Within the following year, Martha received an unexpected settlement from a legal matter she had nearly forgotten, a matter arising from an automobile accident years earlier. The amount was substantial enough to provide a down payment on a modest home. Her children began to thrive in school, receiving scholarships and opportunities that seemed to appear from nowhere. What happened to Martha? The same thing that happened to Edward. She impressed a new image upon her subconscious mind. She replaced the belief in struggle with a belief in provision. And the creative law, which has no favorites and no exceptions, responded to her new mental atmosphere by reshaping her external world accordingly. I share these illustrations not to promise that your experience will unfold in exactly the same way. Each person's path is unique, and the forms through which abundance manifests are as varied as human life itself. But the principle is constant. The law is reliable. When you change the inside, the outside must eventually correspond. The question that now arises in many minds is practical. How do I impress these new beliefs upon my subconscious? How do I overcome years or decades of contrary programming? How do I believe in abundance when my senses show me only lack? These are important questions, and they deserve careful answers. The first technique, and perhaps the most powerful, is what might be called the method of pre-sleep impression. Just before you fall asleep at night, your conscious mind begins to relax its grip. The critical faculty that normally guards the entrance to the subconscious becomes drowsy and permeable. In this state, suggestions and images pass easily into the deeper mind without resistance. This is why the last thoughts you hold before sleeping are of such profound importance. If you fall asleep worrying about bills, fearing financial disaster, or resenting your current circumstances, you are impressing those very states upon the subconscious. You are effectively instructing your deeper mind to create more of what you fear and resent. But if you deliberately choose your pre-sleep thoughts, if you fall asleep imagining yourself already in possession of the wealth you desire, feeling the reality of abundance as though it were already present, you are impressing prosperity upon the subconscious. And the subconscious will work throughout the night, connecting with infinite intelligence, to bring about circumstances that match your new inner picture. The key is feeling. It is not enough to mechanically visualize while your emotions remain flat or doubtful. You must feel the reality of what you are imagining. You must experience the gratitude, the satisfaction, the peace of mind that would accompany the fulfillment of your desire. This feeling is the language the subconscious understands. Words alone are like letters written in invisible ink, they leave no impression. But words charged with feeling are written in fire. Consider how you would actually feel if, at this very moment, all your financial needs were completely met. How would you feel if you knew that money would never again be a source of worry in your life? Allow that feeling to wash over you now. This is not fantasy. This is not pretense. This is preparation. You are giving your subconscious a sample of the frequency it needs to broadcast into the creative medium of life. A second technique involves what might be called living in the end. This means assuming in your imagination that your desire is already fulfilled and conducting your mental life from that assumption. You do not wonder if wealth will come. You do not hope that prosperity might arrive someday. You assume that it is already here, already yours, already expressing in your life. And you allow this assumption to color your thoughts, your feelings, and your expectations throughout the day. This is not denial of present circumstances. You do not pretend that your current bank balance is different than it is. You acknowledge physical reality while simultaneously affirming a deeper reality, the reality of the fulfilled desire existing in the consciousness of the infinite, waiting only for your acceptance to precipitate into form. Jesus articulated this principle perfectly when he said in Mark 11 verse 24, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." Notice the tense. Believe that you have received it. Not that you will receive it someday. Not that you might receive it if conditions are favorable. Believe that you have received it. This is the consciousness of the fulfilled wish. This is living in the end. The man of faith does not pray for prosperity in a pleading, begging manner, as though trying to convince a reluctant deity to grant him favor. He prays from prosperity, from the consciousness of already having received. His prayer is thanksgiving, not petition. His attitude is receptivity, not striving. He knows that the Father's good pleasure is to give him the kingdom, as Luke 12 verse 32 declares, and he simply opens himself to receive what has already been given. A third technique involves the deliberate cultivation of gratitude. Gratitude is not merely a pleasant emotion to be enjoyed when circumstances are favorable. It is a creative power. When you feel genuinely grateful for the abundance you desire as though it were already present, you are vibrating at the frequency of prosperity. And like attracts like. The universe responds to your vibrational state by bringing you experiences that match it. Begin each day by giving thanks for the wealth that is flowing into your life. Give thanks for the opportunities that are even now making their way toward you. Give thanks for the infinite source that never withholds and never fails. This gratitude is not a trick to manipulate the universe. It is an acknowledgement of truth. Abundance exists. Supply is infinite. The only question is whether you will open yourself to receive it. There was a young man I shall call Daniel. Daniel had accumulated significant debt during his college years and found himself in his late 20s working a job he disliked while making minimum payments that seemed to barely touch the principal. He felt trapped, hopeless, and increasingly resentful of a system that seemed designed to keep him in bondage. Daniel learned of the principle of mental creation and decided he had nothing to lose by attempting it. He began a practice of nightly visualization in which he saw himself holding a paper marked "Paid in Full." He imagined the feeling of total financial freedom, the lightness, the joy, the sense of possibility. He also began keeping a gratitude journal, writing each morning about the abundance he was thankful for, including abundance that had not yet appeared in physical form. At first, Daniel felt foolish. Who was he to give thanks for wealth when he was drowning in debt? But he persisted, trusting the principle. Slowly, his emotional state began to shift. He felt less burdened, less resentful, more open to possibility. And then the outer circumstances began to shift as well. Daniel received a promotion he had not applied for, one that increased his income substantially. He discovered a refinancing option that reduced his interest rates dramatically. An uncle he barely knew passed away and left a modest inheritance that went directly toward his debt. A side project he had started as a hobby began generating unexpected income. Within 3 years, Daniel was completely debt-free and building savings for the first time in his life. He had not struggled or strained to make this happen. He had simply changed his inner state, and the outer world had conformed. This is the testimony that those who apply these principles consistently offer. Not all experiences unfold in the same way. The forms vary. The timing differs. But the underlying principle remains constant. Change the inner and the outer will follow. Yet I must speak now of something equally important, and that is the matter of non-resistance. Many who attempt to use these principles fail because they hold too tightly to their desires. They visualize with tension rather than relaxation. They affirm with desperation rather than confidence. They say the words of faith while radiating the energy of fear. The subconscious mind responds not to what you want but to what you are. If you are worried about money, you are broadcasting worry, and the subconscious will create more circumstances to worry about. If you are at peace about money, trusting in the invisible supply, the subconscious will create circumstances that confirm that peace. This is why the attitude of letting go is so essential. Having planted the seed of your desire in the subconscious through visualization and feeling, you must then release it. You must trust the process. You must not dig up the seed to see if it is growing. You must not demand immediate results. You must not watch the clock and calculate when your manifestation should appear. The farmer who plants corn does not return to the field each hour to see if the corn has sprouted. He knows that the earth and the seed contain their own intelligence. He knows that the process of growth is occurring beneath the surface even when nothing is visible above. He tends the field, waters when necessary, and waits with patience for the harvest. So it must be with your mental planting. You have impressed the image of abundance upon your subconscious. You have felt the reality of your desire. Now you must release it with confidence, knowing that the law is working, knowing that beneath the surface of appearances something wonderful is taking form. The scriptures speak of this release in many ways. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act, says Psalm 37 verse 5. To commit your way is to release it, to let go, to place it in hands greater than your own. And when you truly let go, when you truly trust, you create the condition in which divine action can flow freely. There is a story of a woman named Isabel who exemplifies this principle beautifully. Isabel was a widow living on a fixed income that barely covered her basic expenses. Her only son lived across the country and, though loving, was not in a position to provide financial assistance. Isabel faced a decision. She could either live in constant fear about money, counting every penny and dreading every bill, or she could trust in a power greater than her visible circumstances. Isabel chose trust. Not because she had proof that things would improve, but because she decided that fear was not a way she was willing to live. Each morning, she would affirm to herself, "The infinite source provides for me abundantly. I lack nothing that I need. All is well." And then she would release the matter, going about her day with a peaceful heart. Isabel did not deny her circumstances. She did not pretend her income was greater than it was. But she refused to let fear dominate her consciousness. She lived in quiet trust, doing what was before her to do and leaving the larger matters to the unseen power she had learned to rely upon. Over time, small blessings began to appear. A neighbor needed help and paid Isabel for services she would have offered freely. A forgotten insurance policy was discovered, providing a modest monthly benefit. Her son received an unexpected bonus and insisted on sharing a portion with his mother. Community programs she had not known existed provided assistance with utilities and medical expenses. None of these developments was dramatic. There was no lottery win, no sudden inheritance, no overnight transformation. But slowly, steadily, Isabel's needs were met. More than met, exceeded. She found herself with margin, with breathing room, with the ability to give to others as she herself had received. What happened to Isabel was the natural result of the law she had invoked. By refusing fear and choosing trust, she had cleared the channel through which abundance could flow. By releasing her worry, she had removed the resistance that had been blocking her good. The infinite source had always been there, always ready to provide. She had simply learned to receive. This brings us to a crucial understanding. Prosperity is not something you chase. It is something you allow. You do not create wealth through force and struggle alone. You create it by aligning your consciousness with the ever-present supply and allowing it to flow into your experience. This does not mean you take no action. Action is often required. Opportunities must be recognized and seized. Work must be performed. But the action comes from inspiration, not desperation. It flows from clarity, not confusion. It is the natural expression of an inward abundance, not a frantic attempt to create abundance from the outside in. When you are aligned with prosperity consciousness, the right actions become obvious. Doors appear where there were only walls. Connections form that advance your aims. Ideas arise that solve long-standing problems. The doing becomes effortless because it is the outer expression of an inner certainty. Consider the words of Jesus in Matthew 6 verse 33, "But seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." The kingdom of God, in the context of these teachings, is the realm of consciousness, the inner domain where thought and feeling create reality. To seek first the kingdom is to establish your consciousness in the awareness of divine abundance before concerning yourself with external acquisition. And when this inner establishment is made, the outer things follow naturally. You are not begging the universe for prosperity. You are recognizing the prosperity that already exists as the nature of reality and allowing yourself to participate in it. This is a radically different orientation than most people hold. Most believe they must get prosperity from somewhere outside themselves, from employers or customers or investments or luck. But the truth is that prosperity exists eternally within the infinite mind, and your consciousness is the gateway through which it flows into your individual experience. The degree to which you open that gateway is the degree to which abundance flows. And the gateway is opened by belief, by feeling, by the inner conviction that you are a child of the infinite entitled to share in infinite supply. Perhaps you have struggled with this conviction. Perhaps you have been taught that wanting money is sinful, that prosperity is somehow unspiritual, that good people should be satisfied with little. If so, I urge you to examine these beliefs carefully. They may feel virtuous, but they are often rooted in misunderstanding. The infinite is not poor. The source of all creation is not limited. The power that scattered billions of stars across the heavens and filled the oceans with countless forms of life is not stingy or withholding. Lack exists only in the minds of those who believe in it. Scarcity is a mental state, not an objective condition of reality. When you prosper, you do not take from others. You participate in the infinite abundance that has no boundaries and no shortage. Your wealth does not create someone else's poverty. Your success does not cause another's failure. There is enough for all because the source is inexhaustible. The scripture says in Philippians 4 verse 19, "And my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches in glory." Notice, according to his riches, not according to economic conditions, not according to job markets, not according to what seems possible given your current circumstances. According to his riches, the infinite, boundless riches of divine supply. This is your birthright. This is your inheritance. Not by virtue of anything you have done to deserve it, but by virtue of what you are. You are a center of consciousness through which the infinite expresses. You are a channel through which divine abundance flows into the world. When you awaken to this truth and align yourself with it, prosperity is not something you struggle to achieve, it is something that happens naturally, inevitably, as certainly as water flows downhill. The process of awakening to prosperity consciousness is often gradual. Years of contrary programming are not erased overnight. The subconscious mind, having accepted certain beliefs for so long, does not immediately release them in favor of new instructions. Patience is required. Persistence is essential. But know this, every time you impress abundance upon your subconscious, you weaken the old patterns of lack. Every time you feel the reality of prosperity, even for a moment, you strengthen the new pattern. Every time you refuse to give power to fear and worry, you diminish their hold on your consciousness. The battle is won not in a single confrontation but through consistent daily practice. Each night as you fall asleep with images of abundance, you advance the cause of prosperity. Each morning as you give thanks for infinite supply, you reinforce the new programming. Each time you catch yourself in worry and deliberately choose trust, you prove your mastery over the old ways. And one day, perhaps suddenly, perhaps gradually, you will realize that the change has occurred. You will notice that you no longer worry about money the way you once did. You will observe that opportunities seem to find you, that abundance flows easily, that the old fears have lost their power. This will not be because external circumstances have changed first. It will be because your internal consciousness has changed, and the external has followed. This is the promise of subconscious mind science, that you are not a victim of circumstance but a creator of experience. That the power to prosper lies not outside you in economic conditions or lucky breaks but inside you in the realm of belief and assumption. That whatever you impress upon the subconscious with faith and feeling must eventually manifest in your world. The only question is whether you will use this power consciously and deliberately or continue to use it unconsciously and haphazardly. The power operates either way. The law is always in effect. You are always impressing something upon your subconscious, always creating your experience through the images and feelings you hold. The invitation is simply to take control of the process, to choose what you will create, to plant seeds of abundance rather than seeds of lack. And when you do, when you truly accept your role as the architect of your financial destiny, you will understand why God commands prosperity into your hands. It is not that a deity far off in the heavens reaches down to give you what you need. It is that the infinite power within you, responding to your belief and expectation, arranges circumstances to match your new consciousness. The command comes from within. The prosperity flows from within. The God who commands is the presence that lives at the center of your own being. This is the mystery hidden in plain sight. This is the treasure buried in the field of your own consciousness. This is the pearl of great price that, once found, transforms everything. And you have found it now. You are finding it in this very moment as these words penetrate your awareness. The teachings are not merely information to be stored. They are seeds being planted even now in the soil of your subconscious. And if you will water them with attention, nurture them with practice, and protect them from the weeds of doubt, they will grow into a harvest of abundance beyond anything you currently imagine. The infinite is not far from you. It is nearer than your own breath. It is closer than your own thoughts. It is the very ground of your being, the foundation upon which your existence rests. And it is ready, right now, in this moment, to flood your life with every form of good you have the consciousness to receive. Open yourself now. Release the resistance that has blocked your flow. Let go of the beliefs that have held you in bondage. Accept the truth that has always been true but that you have not yet fully claimed. You are a child of the infinite, heir to all its treasures, entitled to prosper beyond measure. This is not arrogance. This is recognition. This is not greed. This is alignment with your divine nature. You were not born to struggle. You were not created to suffer lack. You were formed in the image of infinite abundance, and when you recognize and claim that image, the entire universe conspires to prove it true in your experience. Let these words sink deep into your heart tonight. Let them bypass the skepticism of the intellect and lodge themselves in the feeling nature where true creation occurs. Let them become more than ideas. Let them become convictions, assumptions, unshakable certainties from which you will never again waver. And as you do, watch what happens next. Watch the circumstances of your life begin to shift. Watch opportunities appear where none existed before. Watch relationships form that support your prosperity. Watch ideas arise that solve problems and create value. Watch the invisible become visible as the inner picture projects itself upon the screen of external reality. This is not magic. This is law. This is not wishful thinking. This is the science of mind operating as it has always operated, as it will always operate, as reliably as gravity and as certain as the sunrise. God commands prosperity into your hands because you and God are not separate. The commanding power is your own consciousness awakened to its divine nature. The prosperity that flows is the infinite abundance that has always surrounded you but that you have only now learned to accept. Accept it now. Claim it now. Live from it now. And let the transformation begin. The teaching we have begun together carries with it a responsibility that cannot be ignored. To know the law is to be accountable to the law. You can no longer claim ignorance as your excuse for poverty. You can no longer blame external circumstances for your lack. You have been given a key that unlocks the treasury of the infinite, and what you do with that key from this moment forward is entirely in your hands. Let us go deeper still into the mechanics of this creative process, for understanding alone is not enough. You must know not only what to do but how to do it with precision and power. The subconscious mind is responsive, but it responds according to specific conditions. When those conditions are met, results are inevitable. When they are violated, even sincere effort produces little fruit. The first condition is clarity. You must know exactly what you desire. Vague wishes produce vague results. If you impress upon your subconscious a fuzzy picture of more money or better circumstances, you are giving it insufficient instruction. The subconscious works with images, with specific impressions, with clear mental pictures charged with feeling. The more precise your inner vision, the more precise the outer manifestation. Consider a woman I shall call Rosalind. Rosalind spent years affirming prosperity in general terms. She would say, I am wealthy. Money flows to me. I am abundant. These affirmations were not wrong, but they lacked specificity. They gave the subconscious no clear picture to work with, no definite instruction to follow. When Rosalind learned the importance of clarity, she changed her approach. Instead of affirming wealth in abstract terms, she created a specific mental scene that implied the fulfillment of her desire. She imagined herself sitting at her kitchen table, reviewing her bank statement, seeing a specific balance that represented financial freedom to her. She imagined the feeling of security that balance would provide, the options it would open, the peace of mind it would create. This was not a rigid demand that things unfold in exactly one way. It was the creation of a mental equivalent, a specific inner picture that corresponded to the general desire for abundance. The subconscious, having received a clear instruction, now had something concrete to manifest. And manifest it did, though not in the precise form Rosalind had imagined. Within 18 months, Rosalind's financial picture had transformed completely. She did not receive the exact bank balance she had visualized, she received something greater. A business venture she had begun as a side project had grown beyond her expectations. An investment she had nearly forgotten had appreciated dramatically. Her expenses had decreased through circumstances she had not foreseen. The net result was a financial position even more favorable than her original visualization. This is how the law works. You provide the specific image as a way of clarifying your desire and impressing it upon the subconscious. But the infinite intelligence within knows better than you do how to bring about your good. It may use the exact channels you imagined, or it may surprise you with channels far superior. Your job is to provide the what and the feeling. The how belongs to the deeper wisdom that orchestrates all things. The second condition is repetition. A single impression, no matter how vivid, rarely transforms deeply ingrained subconscious patterns. The beliefs that created your current circumstances have been reinforced thousands of times through the years. They will not surrender their territory to a single visualization session, no matter how sincere. You must impress the new image repeatedly until it takes root in the subconscious as the dominant pattern. This is not drudgery. This is cultivation. Just as the gardener waters the plant daily, so you must water the seed of prosperity daily with your attention and feeling. The most effective time for this repetition, as we have discussed, is the pre-sleep state. But you need not limit yourself to this time alone. Throughout the day, whenever you find your mind drifting toward worry or lack, gently redirect it to the feeling of abundance. Catch yourself in moments of fear and replace the fear with faith. This consistent redirection gradually shifts the balance of power in your consciousness from lack to plenty. There was a salesman named Victor who exemplifies this principle. Victor sold insurance, and for years his income had plateaued at a level that covered his family's basic needs but allowed for little else. He had tried various external strategies, new sales techniques, expanded territories, additional product lines, but nothing produced lasting improvement. When Victor learned about the subconscious mind's role in determining results, he committed to a program of mental repetition. Each morning before leaving for work, he would spend 10 minutes in quiet visualization, seeing himself as a top producer, feeling the satisfaction of helping families protect their futures while receiving abundant compensation for his service. Each night before sleep, he would repeat this visualization with even greater intensity. But Victor went further. Throughout his workday, whenever he felt discouragement or doubt creeping in, after a rejection, before a difficult call, during moments of uncertainty, he would pause for 30 seconds and reconnect with his inner image of success. He would feel, even briefly, the reality of abundance that he was cultivating within. At first, Victor noticed no change in his external results. His sales numbers remained at their customary level. But he persisted, trusting the principle. He refused to judge the effectiveness of his practice by immediate evidence. He understood that the subconscious works beneath the surface and that the outer change would follow the inner change in due time. After approximately 3 months, something shifted. Victor found himself speaking with greater confidence during sales presentations. He noticed he was attracting different types of prospects, people more receptive to his offerings, more decisive in their purchasing, more likely to provide referrals. His closing rate increased. His average policy size grew. Word of mouth began bringing clients to him without cold calling. Within 1 year, Victor's income had more than doubled. Within 3 years, he had become one of the top producers in his entire region. He had changed nothing about the external aspects of his job. He had changed only his inner image of himself and his expectation of results. And the outer world had faithfully conformed to the inner change. This is the power of repetition. This is why daily practice is not optional but essential. You are not merely going through motions. You are reshaping the very fabric of your mental atmosphere. And as that atmosphere changes, the weather of your external experience must change with it. The third condition is feeling. I have mentioned this before, but I return to it because it is so crucial and so often neglected. The subconscious mind is not reached by words alone. It is reached by the emotional charge that accompanies the words. You must feel the reality of what you are affirming. You must experience in imagination the emotions you would experience if your desire were already fulfilled. This is where many falter. They understand the technique intellectually. They perform the visualizations correctly. But they do so with emotional detachment, as though watching a movie that does not truly involve them. The subconscious recognizes this disconnect and does not accept the impression as real. To overcome this, you must engage your feeling nature deliberately. Before beginning your visualization, recall a time when you felt genuinely abundant, secure, and prosperous, even if only for a moment. It might have been the feeling of receiving a gift you truly wanted. It might have been a moment of unexpected financial good fortune. It might have been the sensation of generosity when you gave something precious to someone you loved. Whatever it was, capture that feeling and bring it into your present visualization. As you imagine your scene of prosperity, bathe it in this feeling of abundance. Let the emotion suffuse every detail of the picture. Feel it in your body, the relaxation, the openness, the security. Feel it in your heart, the gratitude, the joy, the peace. This feeling is the key that unlocks the subconscious door. Without it, you are knocking but not entering. The scriptures understand this principle well. In Mark 11 verse 24, we read, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." The belief spoken of here is not intellectual assent. It is felt conviction. It is the inner certainty that registers in the feeling nature, that creates a settled sense of having rather than wanting. When you truly believe you have received, you feel differently than when you are still hoping to receive. The feeling of having is relaxed, grateful, complete. The feeling of hoping is tense, anxious, incomplete. The subconscious knows the difference. It responds to the feeling of having by creating circumstances that confirm having. It responds to the feeling of hoping by creating circumstances that confirm the need to keep hoping. This is why so many prayers seem to go unanswered. The prayer is offered with the feeling of not having, of need, of lack. And the subconscious, faithful to its nature, manifests more of not having, more need, more lack. The prayer must be offered from the consciousness of fulfillment, not toward it. This is the secret hidden in the words of the Master, "Believe that you have received." Let me share with you the story of a man I will call Frederick. Frederick was a craftsman, a maker of fine furniture who sold his work through a small shop in a modest town. 4 years, his business had provided enough to live simply but not enough to thrive. He dreamed of expanding, of reaching a wider audience, of creating pieces that would be treasured for generations. But the means to achieve this dream seemed forever beyond his reach. Frederick learned of the principle of feeling and decided to apply it wholeheartedly. Each evening, he would retire to his workshop after the day's labor was complete. There, surrounded by the tools and materials of his trade, he would sit quietly and compose his mind for visualization. But Frederick did something unique. He did not merely imagine success in abstract terms. He would pick up a piece of wood and feel its grain beneath his fingers. He would smell the sawdust and the finishing oils. He would imagine, in vivid detail, a customer standing in his workshop, marveling at a piece he had created, speaking words of appreciation, writing a check for an amount that made Frederick's heart sing. He would feel the pride of mastery, the satisfaction of service, the joy of abundance. Frederick did this night after night, always engaging his senses, always cultivating the feeling of success rather than merely the picture of it. And slowly, the outer world began to align with his inner vision. A visitor passing through town happened upon Frederick's shop and was struck by the quality of his work. This visitor was connected to a network of interior designers who served wealthy clients in distant cities. Within months, Frederick's furniture was being featured in homes he could never have imagined entering. Commissions arrived that exceeded any he had previously received. His simple shop became a destination for connoisseurs of fine craftsmanship. Frederick never moved to a larger city. He never changed his methods or compromised his standards. He simply changed his inner feeling about himself and his work, and the world responded by recognizing and rewarding what had always been there. This is the power of feeling. This is why you must not approach these practices as mere techniques to be mechanically performed. You must approach them as the cultivation of a new emotional home, a new inner dwelling place of abundance from which you will never again be displaced. The fourth condition is faith. Faith is not hope. Hope looks forward to a desired future. Faith rests in a present reality not yet visible to the senses. Hope wishes things might change. Faith knows that change has already occurred in the realm of mind and must soon manifest in the realm of matter. The scriptures define faith in Hebrews 11 verse 1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Notice the extraordinary claims of this statement. Faith is substance, it has reality, weight, presence. Faith is evidence, it provides proof of what has not yet appeared. This is not poetic exaggeration. This is precise description of the creative principle. When you hold an image in your mind with the feeling of reality, you have created a mental substance. This substance exists in the realm of mind as truly as physical objects exist in the realm of matter. And just as a seed in the ground contains within itself the pattern of the plant it will become, so the mental substance contains within itself the pattern of the physical manifestation it will produce. Faith is your recognition of this mental substance as real. Faith is your confidence that what exists in mind must eventually appear in matter. Faith is your willingness to act as though the invisible reality is more dependable than the visible appearance. This is not easy when appearances contradict your vision. When the bank account is low and the bills are high, it requires extraordinary conviction to maintain faith in invisible abundance. When opportunities have not yet materialized and delays seem endless, it requires uncommon strength to continue believing that the law is working. But this is precisely the faith that moves mountains. This is the faith that impresses the subconscious so deeply that manifestation becomes inevitable. This is the faith that connects your individual mind to the infinite intelligence that knows no obstacles and recognizes no impossibilities. There was a young woman named Camille who demonstrated this faith under the most challenging circumstances. Camille was an artist who had struggled for years to sell her work. Galleries had rejected her. Critics had ignored her. Her savings had dwindled to almost nothing. By all external measures, her career was a failure, and sensible people urged her to abandon her dreams and find practical employment. But Camille had discovered the principle of mental creation, and she chose to apply it with unwavering faith. Each night, she would imagine herself at the opening of a major exhibition of her work. She would see the crowded room, hear the murmur of appreciation, feel the satisfaction of recognition. She would imagine a collector approaching her with an offer that would change her financial life forever. For many months, nothing in the outer world changed. Camille continued to struggle, continued to face rejection, continued to watch her resources diminish. Lesser faith would have crumbled. Reasonable doubt would have taken hold. But Camille held firm, not because she was naive, but because she understood that the law operates beneath appearances and that her persistence was impressing her subconscious more deeply with each passing day. Then, as these stories so often unfold, the breakthrough came. A collector who had seen one of Camille's pieces in an obscure venue became intrigued and sought her out. This collector had connections throughout the art world and became Camille's champion, introducing her work to galleries and buyers who had never before heard her name. Within 2 years, Camille's financial worries had ended. Her work was sought after and commanding prices she had scarcely dared to imagine. What made the difference? Faith that persisted through delay. Conviction that remained firm despite contrary evidence. Trust in the law that continued operating even when results were not yet visible. You must cultivate this faith within yourself. Not a passive faith that merely waits and wonders, but an active faith that continues to impress the subconscious night after night, that refuses to give reality to appearances of lack, that holds to the inner vision regardless of outer circumstances. The fifth condition is persistence. This flows naturally from faith but deserves emphasis in its own right. The subconscious mind responds to persistent impression. A single effort, however sincere, rarely produces lasting change. But repeated effort, sustained over time, inevitably transforms the inner landscape. There is a principle at work here that might be called the law of cumulative impression. Each time you visualize abundance, you make a deposit in the subconscious. Each time you feel prosperity, you strengthen the new pattern. These deposits may seem small individually, but they accumulate. And when the accumulated weight of new impressions exceeds the accumulated weight of old beliefs, the balance tips and manifestation occurs. This is why you must never grow discouraged during the period of seeming delay. You are not waiting passively for something to happen. You are actively building toward a tipping point, adding weight to the side of abundance with every session of practice, every feeling of prosperity, every moment of maintained faith. The delay is not real in the way it appears. It is simply the time required for the accumulated impressions to reach critical mass. And that critical mass will be reached, must be reached, if you persist in your practice. The law knows no exceptions. The outcome is certain. Only the timing remains to be revealed. Consider the words of Isaiah 55 verse 11, "So shall my word be that goes out from my mouth, it shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish that which I purpose, and shall succeed in the thing for which I sent it." Your word is your mental image charged with feeling and faith. When you send it forth into the subconscious, it does not return empty. It accomplishes its purpose. It succeeds in the thing for which you sent it. This is divine promise. This is cosmic law. But you must send the word and continue sending it. You must not withdraw your impression through doubt. You must not cancel your order through fear. You must maintain the mental posture of expectation, knowing that what you have planted must come to harvest. There was an elderly gentleman named Harold who illustrated this persistence beautifully. Harold had retired from a long career in teaching with a pension that barely covered his expenses. He had always dreamed of traveling, of seeing the places he had read about and taught about for so many decades. But his finances seemed to make this dream impossible. Harold learned of mental science in his 73rd year. Some might consider this too late, but Harold saw no reason why age should limit the operation of divine law. He began his practice with the quiet determination that had characterized his entire life. Each night, Harold would imagine himself in a specific destination: the canals of Venice, the temples of Kyoto, the galleries of Paris. He would not merely see these places as in a photograph. He would feel himself there, smell the foreign air, hear the unfamiliar languages, experience the wonder of discovery. He would feel abundant, blessed, grateful for the means to travel freely. Harold persisted in this practice for over 2 years without any visible change in his circumstances. His pension remained the same. His savings remained modest. By all external measures, his dream was no closer to fulfillment. But Harold trusted the law and continued his nightly practice with undiminished faith. Then, in his 75th year, Harold received a letter that would change everything. A relative he barely remembered, a distant cousin who had emigrated decades earlier and built a successful business abroad, had passed away and named Harold as a beneficiary in his will. The inheritance was substantial, far more than Harold had ever possessed in his life. Harold spent the remaining years of his life traveling the world, visiting places he had imagined so vividly during those 2 years of faithful practice. He saw Venice and Kyoto and Paris and dozens of other destinations. He died at 82, wealthy not only in financial terms but in experiences, memories, and the satisfaction of dreams fulfilled. Was this coincidence? Was Harold simply lucky that a forgotten relative chose to remember him? From the perspective of external observation, one might conclude so. But Harold knew better. He understood that his persistent mental practice had connected him with the infinite intelligence that knows all possibilities and orchestrates all circumstances. The relative's decision was part of a larger design that Harold's consciousness had initiated and sustained. This is how the law works. This is why persistence matters. The channels through which your good arrives may be entirely unexpected. You cannot predict them with your conscious mind. But you can trust that they exist and that they will open at the proper time if you maintain your inner practice with faith. Now let us speak of something that often troubles those who approach these teachings: the question of worthiness. Many who learn of the creative power of mind still find themselves blocked by a deep belief that they do not deserve abundance. They intellectually accept the principle but emotionally reject their right to benefit from it. This sense of unworthiness is perhaps the greatest obstacle to prosperity. It operates beneath conscious awareness, sabotaging every effort at manifestation. You may affirm abundance with your lips while believing in your heart that you are unworthy of it. And the subconscious, true to its nature, responds to the deeper belief rather than the surface affirmation. If you recognize this pattern in yourself, you must address it directly. You must understand that worthiness is not something you earn through perfect behavior or spiritual advancement. Worthiness is your birthright. You are worthy because you exist. You are worthy because the same power that created the stars and the oceans created you. You are worthy because the infinite life expressing through you knows nothing of unworthiness. It knows only abundance, only wholeness, only the joy of expression. The feeling of unworthiness is a learned response, not an inherent truth. Somewhere in your early years, you received messages that you were not good enough, not deserving enough, not valuable enough. These messages lodged themselves in your subconscious and have been running like background programs ever since, sabotaging your efforts and limiting your results. But learned responses can be unlearned. Programs can be rewritten. You have the power to impress a new belief in worthiness upon your subconscious just as surely as you have the power to impress a belief in abundance. Begin by affirming your inherent worth as a creation of the infinite. I am a child of the divine, worthy of all good. Repeat this not as empty words but as a declaration of truth. Feel the reality of it. You did not create yourself. You did not assign your own value. The power that created you assigned your value, and that power knows only infinite worth. Consider the words of Psalm 139 verse 14. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, my soul knows it very well. This is not arrogance. This is acknowledgement of divine craftsmanship. You are wonderfully made. Your soul, when it awakens to truth, knows this very well. As you affirm your worthiness consistently, the old programs of unworthiness begin to weaken. They may resist. Old beliefs fight for their survival. But they cannot prevail against the persistent impression of truth. Keep affirming, keep feeling, keep knowing your inherent value. And the day will come when the sense of unworthiness dissolves completely, leaving only the clear recognition of what you have always been, a beloved expression of the infinite, deserving of every good thing. There was a man named Solomon, not the ancient king, but a modern accountant who bore that name, who struggled terribly with unworthiness. Despite his professional skills, Solomon had never earned more than a modest income. He watched colleagues with lesser abilities advance past him. He observed clients prosper while he remained stagnant. Somewhere in his subconscious lurked a belief that he did not deserve success, and this belief manifested faithfully in his limited results. When Solomon learned of mental science, he recognized immediately that unworthiness was his core issue. He had grown up in poverty, with parents who often spoke of their family as not the kind of people who get ahead. These words had planted themselves deep in his psyche and had been bearing bitter fruit ever since. Solomon undertook a deliberate campaign to transform this belief. Each morning, he would look in the mirror and affirm, "I am worthy of abundance. I deserve prosperity. I am valuable beyond measure." At first, the words felt hollow, even ridiculous. But Solomon persisted, understanding that the feeling of falseness was simply the old belief resisting the new. He supplemented his affirmations with visualization. He would imagine himself receiving recognition for his work, being compensated generously for his contributions, living in comfortable prosperity. And always, he would emphasize the feeling of worthiness, the inner sense of deserving the good that was coming to him. The transformation took time. Old beliefs do not surrender easily. But gradually, Solomon noticed changes, not only in his circumstances but in himself. He began to carry himself differently, to speak with greater confidence, to expect respect rather than dismissal. And as his inner bearing changed, his outer results followed. Within 3 years, Solomon had started his own practice and was earning several times his previous income. More importantly, he was at peace with his success. He no longer felt like an imposter receiving more than he deserved. He felt like someone who had finally recognized his true worth and allowed the universe to respond accordingly. This is available to you as well. Whatever lies in your past, whatever messages of unworthiness you may have received, they do not determine your future. You have the power to rewrite your subconscious programming. You have the authority to declare your worth as a child of the infinite. And as you do so consistently and persistently, the outer world will bow to your new inner conviction. Let us also address the matter of generosity and circulation. Prosperity is not meant to be hoarded. It is meant to flow. The universe operates on principles of circulation, of giving and receiving, of outflow and inflow. When you attempt to grasp wealth tightly, to accumulate without giving, to receive without sharing, you restrict the very flow that brings abundance to you. The scriptures express this beautifully in Luke 6 verse 38. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For with the measure you use it will be measured back to you. This is not merely moral instruction. This is description of cosmic law. The measure you use in giving is the measure that returns to you in receiving. This does not mean you must give away everything you have. It means you must remain open to the flow, willing to share from your abundance, trusting that what you give returns to you multiplied. Generosity opens the channels of prosperity. Stinginess closes them. There was a businesswoman named Elaine who learned this lesson through direct experience. Elaine had built a successful company through years of hard work and intelligent decisions. She had achieved financial security and was proud of her accomplishments. But she noticed that at a certain point, her growth had plateaued. Despite her efforts, her business seemed unable to expand beyond a particular level. When Elaine examined her consciousness honestly, she recognized a pattern of fear around money. Though she had plenty, she was afraid of losing it. She gave little to charity, paid her employees the minimum necessary, and negotiated every transaction to her maximum advantage. Her focus was entirely on inflow, with minimal attention to outflow. Upon learning the principle of circulation, Elaine decided to experiment. She increased the wages of her employees, not because she had to, but because she wanted to share her prosperity. She began contributing regularly to causes she believed in. She approached negotiations with a willingness to create value for all parties rather than merely extracting value for herself. At first, Elaine feared these changes would diminish her wealth. The old beliefs around scarcity were strong. But she persisted, trusting the principle. And within a year, her business had broken through the plateau that had limited it for so long. New opportunities appeared. New clients arrived. New levels of success became possible. Elaine later reflected that her shift from grasping to giving had not only increased her prosperity but had also increased her joy. She was happier in her success because it was shared. She was more at peace with her wealth because it was circulating. The lesson of generosity had enriched her in every way. This is the nature of true prosperity. It is not mere accumulation. It is flow. It is participation in the great circulation of abundance that moves through all creation. When you position yourself in this flow, Receiving gratefully, giving generously, trusting completely, you become a channel for ever-increasing good. As we approach the culmination of this teaching, let us gather together the threads of wisdom that have been woven throughout. You have learned that the subconscious mind is the creative medium through which all conditions are formed. You have learned that by impressing images of abundance upon this mind with clarity, repetition, feeling, faith, and persistence, you initiate a creative process that must eventually manifest in your external experience. You have learned that worthiness is your birthright and that generosity opens the channels of flow. But beyond all techniques and principles, there is a deeper truth that underlies everything. You are one with the infinite source of all supply. Not separate from it, not distant from it, not dependent upon its favor. One with it. The same power that creates worlds without end flows through you at this very moment. The same intelligence that governs galaxies operates within your consciousness. The same abundance that overflows in nature without measure is available to you without limit. This is not poetic metaphor. This is literal truth. The separation you feel between yourself and divine supply is an illusion maintained by old beliefs and limited perceptions. In reality, there is no separation. There is only the one infinite presence expressing in countless forms, and you are one of those forms. When you awaken to this truth, when you feel it not just intellectually but in the depths of your being, prosperity becomes not something you seek but something you express. The prayer of the awakened soul is not petition but recognition. It is not asking for abundance but acknowledging the abundance that already is. It is not hoping for provision but resting in the certainty of provision. This is the prayer that never fails because it aligns with what is eternally true. Consider once more the words from Philippians 4 verse 19, "And my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches in glory." Let this promise sink deep into your consciousness tonight. Not according to economic conditions. Not according to your past history. Not according to what seems possible. According to his riches in glory, the infinite, boundless, inexhaustible riches of the divine source. You have access to these riches now. Not someday in the future. Not when you become more spiritual. Not when external circumstances improve. Now. In this moment. The kingdom of abundance is within you, as Jesus declared, and it is waiting only for your recognition to pour forth into visible manifestation. Let the doubts that have plagued you fall away. Let the fears that have restricted you dissolve. Let the beliefs and limitation that have held you in bondage release their grip. You are standing at the threshold of a new life, a life of prosperity, provision, and peace. All that remains is for you to step through. And you are stepping through now. With each word you have absorbed tonight, you have moved closer to the realization that transforms everything. With each principle you have received, you have added weight to the side of abundance in your consciousness. The tipping point approaches. Perhaps it has already been reached. Perhaps even now, as these words settle into your awareness, the scales are shifting and the manifestation is beginning. Watch what happens next. Watch as opportunities present themselves that you could not have foreseen. Watch as resources flow toward you from unexpected directions. Watch as doors open that no human hand could have opened. Watch as the infinite intelligence within you orchestrates your good in ways that exceed your planning and surpass your imagination. This is not promise of specific outcomes, for the forms of abundance are as varied as the souls who receive them. This is promise of principle, the assurance that when consciousness changes, circumstances must follow. Many have walked this path before you. Many have applied these laws and witnessed their faithful operation. The testimonies are countless of those who discovered that the power within them was greater than any condition around them. And now you join their number. You take your place among those who have awakened to the truth of their own divine nature and claimed their inheritance of abundance. You accept the responsibility that comes with this knowledge and commit to applying these principles in your daily life. You become a living demonstration of what is possible when a human mind aligns itself with infinite supply. The teaching I have shared with you tonight represents the distillation of timeless wisdom applied to the practical matter of prosperity. It is offered not as medical advice for physical conditions or as guaranteed promise of specific financial outcomes, for such guarantees would contradict the very nature of the creative process, which works uniquely through each individual consciousness. Rather, this teaching is offered as education and inspiration, a lamp to illuminate the path you walk and a map to guide your journey toward abundance. What you do with this teaching is entirely in your hands. You may take it and apply it faithfully, impressing prosperity upon your subconscious night after night until the manifestation appears. Or you may set it aside, returning to old patterns and familiar limitations. The law makes no demands. The choice is yours. But know this, you are not alone in this journey. The same power that spoke through the prophets of old, that inspired the wisdom teachers of every age, that moves through all creation in an eternal dance of abundance, this power lives within you. It is closer than your breath. It is more intimate than your thoughts. And it is ready, at this very moment, to express through you as prosperity, provision, and peace. Open yourself to receive. Trust the process. Persist through apparent delay. Know that you are worthy. Give as you would receive. And above all, believe that you have received, and it shall be yours. God commands prosperity into your hands. Not through the intervention of an external deity but through the operation of divine law activated by your own consciousness. The command is your conviction. The prosperity is your manifestation. The God who commands is the infinite presence living at the center of your own being. You came to this teaching tonight not by accident but by appointment. Something within you was ready to hear these words. Something within you was prepared to receive this truth. Honor that readiness by applying what you have learned. Trust the stirring in your soul that tells you this is real, this is true, this is the way forward into the abundant life that has always been your destiny. As you rest tonight, as you prepare for sleep, let your final thoughts be of prosperity and gratitude. Imagine yourself already living the abundant life you desire. Feel the security, the freedom, the joy of complete financial provision. Let this feeling be the last impression upon your consciousness before sleep carries you into the creative depths where all things are formed. And when you wake tomorrow, rise with expectation. Rise with the knowledge that the law is working on your behalf. Rise with the certainty that your good is on its way. Do not ask how or when. Do not demand signs or proofs. Simply trust, and watch what happens next. The infinite is with you. The power is within you. The abundance is yours. Now go forth and claim it. This teaching has been offered for educational and inspirational purposes, drawing upon the timeless principles of subconscious mind science and the philosophy of prosperity consciousness. The illustrations shared throughout have been created to demonstrate the operation of these principles in ways that speak to the human experience. As you apply these teachings in your own life, do so with wisdom, discernment, and inspired action. Trust your own inner guidance. Take practical steps as they are revealed to you. And know that the power to transform your financial life rests ultimately within your own consciousness, waiting to be released through faith, feeling, and persistent application. May you walk in prosperity. May you rest in abundance. May you know, from this moment forward, that God commands prosperity into your hands, and it is so.